The silent passenger. The rain drizzled down in silver sheets, coating the asphalt with a slick sheen. Derek Turner drummed his fingers against the steering wheel of his black sedan, staring at his rideshare app. It had been a slow night, and he was eager for one last trip before heading home. A notification popped up, a ride request from a location just outside the city, near a wooded area. But he thought, few people requested rides from that side of town at this hour. Still, the payout looked good and he didn't want to waste time second-guessing. Derek accepted the ride and turned onto the dimly lit highway, his tires hissing against the wet road. After about 10 minutes, he pulled up near a lonely bus stop where a single street lamp flickered uncertainly. A man stood there, wearing an old-fashioned suit, the kind you'd expect to see in a black and white movie. His fedora was tilted slightly downward, shadowing his face. He didn't move as Derek's car rolled to a stop. Lowering the passenger side window, Derek called out, "Hey, you call for a ride?" The man nodded once, then stepped forward. He moved with an eerie grace, like he was gliding rather than walking. Derek unlocked the door and the man slid into the back seat. "Where to?" Derek asked, pulling up the app. The destination was already set, an address deep within the city. The passenger didn't answer. Derek glanced at him through the rearview mirror. The man was staring straight ahead, his face still obscured by the dim lighting. His presence was unsettling, but Derek brushed it off. Drunk passengers acted weird all the time. With a shrug, he put the car into gear and pulled onto the highway. The silence in the car thickened with each passing mile. Normally, Derek would make small talk, but something about this passenger told him not to. Still, the quiet got to him. "So, long night?" No answer. Derek swallowed. He hated these awkward rides, but something about this man's silence felt different. Intentional, almost calculated. The GPS guided them through the outskirts of town, past abandoned gas stations and darkened storefronts. Derek kept glancing at the mirror, expecting his passenger to do something. Check his phone, adjust his seat, anything, but he remained rigid, his hands resting neatly on his lap. Then Derek noticed something unsettling. The passenger wasn't reflected in the mirror. His heart stuttered. That wasn't possible. He could see the car's back seat, could see the slight crumple where the man sat, but no body, no shadow, nothing. Derek's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "Okay," he muttered under his breath. "I'm just tired. That's all." He flicked his eyes to the mirror again. Still nothing. A chill ran down his spine. He focused on the road, his breath shallow. The GPS said 10 more minutes. Just 10 minutes and he'd drop this guy off. Then he'd never drive this route again. The city lights came into view, neon reflections rippling against the wet pavement. Derek's unease grew. Every instinct screamed at him to pull over and end the ride. He cleared his throat. "We're almost there." Nothing. Derek tightened his grip on the wheel. Then, for the first time since entering the car, the man moved. Slowly he raised his head. Derek caught the movement in his periphery and dared another glance in the mirror. For a split second, he saw the man's face, pale, expressionless, with deep, sunken eyes that held an emptiness more terrifying than anger or malice. Derek's pulse spiked and he slammed his foot on the brakes. The car skidded to a halt in the middle of an empty intersection. He whipped around. The back seat was empty. His breath came in short gasps. The car door hadn't opened. The man hadn't left. He had simply disappeared. Derek's pulse hammered in his ears. He twisted in his seat, scanning the street. Nothing. Then his phone vibrated. A new notification popped up on the rideshare app. Passenger dropped off. His stomach turned. His heart was still racing when he realized something even worse. The fare was still active. Derek's trembling fingers tapped at his phone. The destination remained locked in. Whoever, or whatever, had been in his car still wanted him to drive. A part of him wanted to abandon the ride, but a stronger, stranger part compelled him forward. He couldn't explain it. The car crept through the darkened streets, his mind battling between reason and fear. He told himself he'd drop the ride as soon as he saw the destination. That was all. The GPS led him to a narrow alley, wedged between two abandoned buildings. The address matched. Derek hesitated before stepping out of the car. The rain had stopped, but the air felt thick, suffocating. Then he saw it. A plaque, barely visible under years of grime, affixed to the crumbling brick wall. He wiped the dirt away. In loving memory of Harold Graves. Died 1954. Last seen waiting for a bus home. Derek's chest tightened. His eyes darted back to his car. He suddenly understood why the man's suit had looked outdated, why he'd never spoken. He had picked up a man who had never made it home. The cold air around him pressed against his skin, as if unseen fingers were reaching out. A whisper brushed his ear, though he saw no one there. "Thank you." Derek stumbled back, heart slamming against his ribs. The air lightened, the suffocating heaviness lifting as though someone, had finally moved on. His phone buzzed. The ride had been marked completed. Derek scrambled back into his car, hands shaking. As he drove off, he stole one last glance in the mirror. This time there was nothing there at all.